I don't need you now.
You're dismissed.
Need some air, though. Right, Tammy?
No.
It's warm up here. Hey, I'm burned up. I do like the view, though, without that in the way. So, I like it a little better. Have you ever read something, Michael, in the New Testament? You thought, oh, wow. I better go back in the Old Testament and figure out what all that's about. You ever do that? Something that's totally strange to you? Something that's mentioned, well, anywhere in the New Testament's obviously important, but especially as you get, when God's getting down to His final things He's saying to the church, you better pay attention, because it's His last words about the subject. We're going to look at 3 different verses before we go back to Numbers and deal with this guy. And I had it in my head, I'll just get through all this in one Sunday. It's not. Well, it's not happening, so not going to happen. I'm doing some study on this guy that we're going to talk about. Really, all I knew about him was a donkey. I mean, as far as, I didn't know much more than the donkey. I kind of knew a little bit about his background and where he was from, but we're going to dive into this man, this example for if you ever want to be a false prophet or a false teacher, you just follow this man, you'll be doing it just right. Okay? This is what you do. And it gives you a little bit of insight of how they will act and how they will present themselves. It is not, out and in the open and just obvious. The book of Jude talks about how they just creep in unawares and they work their way in, and that's what this guy did, so to speak. Let's look at, I'll read these real quick. 2 Peter chapter 2 is dealing with false teachers. We'll look at verse, I think it's 15. Yeah, 15. Because I'm telling you, kind of giving you a background of the whole chapter, so I don't have to read the whole chapter. But we're talking about these false teachers. That's who the subject of chapter 2 is. And starting in verse 10, it starts talking about some of their characteristics. We're going to take a look at one verse in this book, one verse in the book of Jude, and 1 or 2 verses in the book of Revelation before we turn back to Numbers. I want you to see that God remembered this man. This man was not just a passing thought. His ways are still being used. And it says, which have forsaken, these people which have forsaken the right way, who are gone astray, following the way of Balaam. Did I tell you it was verse 15? Okay, verse 15. Following the way of Balaam. Balaam is it's weird because he's got 2 A's in his name. That just, that's weird in our English. There's not many 2 A's, but there's few. But Balaam, 2 A's, and because I always do, when I write it 2 L's for some reason. But Balaam, the son of Bosor, who loved the wages of unrighteousness. Now, when we go back and we start reading through the book of Numbers, you're going to look at this guy and go, well, he doesn't seem so bad. As you read it, it doesn't seem so bad. And you kind of think, well, God's not giving him a fair deal here. And you'll see that example when we get to it. I don't know if it'll be tonight. I'm just going to stop at a certain point wherever we get to. I didn't have a planned stopping point, so we'll see where we get. But you're going to see that if you just read it from the Old Testament point of view, it might not seem that he was so bad. Or maybe he just made mistakes. He was just a little misguided. But this guy was a bad dude. Bad dude. So let's turn over in your book to Jude, verse 11. We're all pretty close right here. All close. Again, talking about false teachers. There's only one chapter in the book of Jude. And Jude was writing this letter, and he says, I wanted to write to you about something different. But God said, this is what you need to write about. And he wrote this about these false teachers. The first message I ever preached was on Jude. Whoa. I was way off. See, it seemed like I was way, now I look back and I was maybe way off there a little bit. But he's talking about these false teachers again, and we look in verse 11. Talking about their description, false teachers. Woe unto them, for they have gone the way of Cain and ran greedily after the way of Balaam for what? Reward. It said in the earlier verse, he loved the wages of unrighteousness. Here it says he ran greedily after the error of Balaam for reward and perished for the gainsaying of Korah. But so what? When you take those two verses together, what does this man enjoy? He's greedy, preaching for filthy lucre. He is a preacher for hire, so to speak, to do whatever a prophet for hire, whatever the deed is needs to be done, and he can do it, he'll do it for whatever the cost. But he won't appear that way to begin with. Now let's go to Revelation chapter 2. And we are looking at the verses, the message to Pergamos. Now, the first few chapters of Revelation are, well, we know that most of the New Testament is letters to whom? The church. Letters to the church. Revelation was a series that was one letter written to 7 churches, and most churches were given some compliments, except one. I don't know if there was anything good about that last church, the Laodicean church. And then most churches were given some complaints, some compliments and some complaints. We had a couple with no complaints and one with no compliments. It seems we're in that age of the Laodicean church. But the message that he has to the church at Pergamos, this is Jesus talking to John, the revelation of Jesus Christ to John. He's putting it out there. And the angel, and to the angel or the preacher of the church in Pergamos, write, these things saith he which hath the sharp sword with 2 edges. I know thy works, even where thou dwellest, even where Satan's seat is. Little side note, what do you think that means? Even where Satan's seat is. When you look at the history of this city, it was probably a shrine to Zeus or Caesar. It was a hugely pagan city, and it was hard to overcome some of those habits of their entire life. They'd gone to the temple of Zeus and things like that. But anyway, we'll move on from that. And thou holdest fast my name, and hast not denied my faith, even in those days wherein Antipas was my faithful martyr, who was slain among you where Satan dwelleth. What have they done well? They have not denied the faith. They have not denied Jesus. But they got a problem. They got a problem. He says, but I have a few things against you, because thou hast you have people there that hold to the doctrine of Balaam. Okay, so he's after reward, right? That's what Balaam's after. He's after reward. And when we get to it, you're going to see it's what he does for reward that is so terrible. I mean, it is really bad. And you kind of get a glimpse of it right here. Of Balaam, who taught Balak to cast a what? A stumbling block before the children of Israel, to eat things sacrificed unto idols, and to commit fornication. 3 times in the last days that the Bible is being written, God makes mention of this man Balaam. I don't think I had ever mentioned or ever realized he's probably the model for false teachers. They're not open, they don't come in boldly. You're not going to have a false teacher coming in here boldly trying to get in with wild, radical ideas, what's going to happen? He'll conform for a little while and then try to gain trust, then try to sneak in ideas, different beliefs, things to lead you astray, cast stumbling blocks to you, to the church. That's his intent. This is what Balaam did. Balaam appeared righteous. He did appear righteous. So let's go and look at the book of Numbers, chapter 22. And really the story of Balaam the main story takes place in 3 chapters, and we don't have time for 3 chapters at any point in time in one go, because you need the entire narrative. You need the entire thing to figure out what's going on. It's not one of those things we take a couple passages and then fill in the blanks. I want you to see. If we can go ahead and put the map up, we're going to kind of give you a little background about where these things are happening. Remember, when you read the Bible, you got to know where things are happening. And we put our time frame as instantaneous. As these things happen, then this happened, then this happened, then this happened, then this happened. We forget the distances traveled and the time it took for these things to all take place. And this map right here, I don't know if you can see that very well. I'll give you, if you want to look in your own Bible, it'll probably be the first map. The time of the map of the patriarchs. That's probably the map you need to be looking at. And if we can kill one row, I do want to point this out. I don't know if the laser, is that laser still up here? Hey, it is. We're going to take a look here in just a minute at the map. We are coming up Numbers. They're getting ready. They failed. God sentenced them to 40 years or 38 more years or so in the wilderness for their failure at Kadesh Barnea, their rebellion there. They've been wandering we call it the wanderings, but God led them where to go, where to stay, some for days, years, weeks, months, some for maybe smaller amounts of time. But He guided them through the wilderness until the new generation was rising up and getting ready to go in. And the old generation what? Died off. They died off. So they were wandering all over in this place right here. This map is titled Jacob's Flight, but we're not talking about Jacob. The only reason I got this map is because it shows where I'm looking at for this, because it's hard to find anything sometimes with maps, isn't it? That shows everything you want to show in one go. So, and the children of Israel sat forward and pitched in the plains of Moab on this side of the Jordan by Jericho. Jericho is right here. This right here, I'll just call it Abel Shittim, is where they held base for a little while before the invasion. They're right here. Joshua sent the spies, I believe, from right there, if I'm not mistaken, when I was reading in Joshua chapter, is that right? In Joshua chapter 1 the other day? It's right across from Jericho, and that's where they're getting ready to take their first city. So they're over in this area right here. They're camped in all these plains. Now remember, there's probably still some 2 million of them. And they're all right here, and their adventures, they've had some adventures on the way up. They've rebelled, and they've had their moments of triumph and their moments of failures, and they've had their battles where they have taken out armies, and God has led them victoriously, battle after battle. And what happens as that happens to all these other people out here? What are they seeing? They are seeing a pretty much invincible army coming through. And they get a little what? They get a little weak in the knees when they see them coming. So they've set camp right up here in Moab, getting ready for whatever the Lord tells them to do next, getting ready to go in. Moses still has to give a second delivering of the law. That'll take some time. But they're getting ready. They're getting ready. And Balak, verse 2, chapter 22, verse 2. Balak, the son of Zippor, saw all that Israel had done to the Amorites. Saw that battle in the previous chapters in Numbers. And Moab was sore afraid of the people because they were many. And Moab was distressed because of the children of Israel. It's kind of funny. If they'd have just left them alone, if they just left them alone, not worried about them, they'd have been gone before too long. but, people want to meddle. And then they ended up losing their land anyway. But if they'd have just said, hey, let's just let them go. Maybe they're on their way through, just passing through. We don't want to mess with them. But they did want to. They didn't want that threat hanging over them. And Moab said unto the elders of Midian, now shall this company, I love some of the language in the King James, listen to this. Now shall this people lick up all that are round about us? What's that? What do you think that means? Or take everything. Look here. And the ox licketh up the grass of the field. And Balak, the son of Zippor, was king of the Moabites at that time. He sent messengers, therefore, unto Balaam, the son of Beor, to Pethor, I'll call it, which is by the river of the land of his people, of the children of his people, to call him, saying, behold, there is a people come out from Egypt. Behold, they cover the face of the earth, and they abide over against me. Where in the world is Pethor? We know it's by a what?
River.
It's by a river. Does anybody know what river?
Euphrates.
It is the Euphrates River. So we're talking about a good distance here. This is not a 5-minute walk. Hey, we know Prophet lives right over here in this city next door. Let's go find him. Oh no, this was a man who had a reputation. You're looking at all the way up here below this Carchemish. Right in here is where all the maps that I have seen say that Pethor was probably located. Right in that area right there. And these people are right here. Now, in my maps, I could not find a way to get from an ancient city, Pethor, to this Abel Shittim down here. It just doesn't exist. So I said, well, I'll go close. So I looked at Aleppo to Jerusalem. 625 kilometers, a little over 400 miles. That's from here to Memphis on the interstate. This was not a short trip. This did not take place overnight. And you'll see there are multiple convoys going back and forth here. It took a while. You've got lots is happening. Lots of time going into these thoughts and these plans and this travel. So they're traveling from right in here, somewhere in here, this area, all the way up to right there on the Euphrates River. That's a long way. So I want you to keep that in mind as we see these people moving back and forth. And the time that it probably took for all these events in these 3 chapters to unfold. So that is we were on verse 5. So he sends his messengers up there to Balaam. And this is what he says to him. Come now, therefore, I pray thee, and curse me this people, for they are too mighty for me. Peradventure I shall prevail, that we may smite them. Come and curse them, so that I'll prevail. We've got to have a prophet to come and curse them. We've got to have... He knew. What does that tell you? He knew he could not do it man's way. He needed a supernatural aid or help to go up against this people. So he goes after someone who can do it. He goes after Balaam. And we shall smite them, and that I may drive them out of the land, for I want not that he whom that you blessed is blessed. Basically, what it says way back in Genesis, whoever blesses them is blessed, and whoever is cursed is cursed. Okay, whoever this man blesses is blessed, and whoever he curses is cursed. He probably, we're going to see, he's in touch with Yahweh God. He has conversations with him. He knows the history of it. And the elders of Moab and the elders of Midian departed with the rewards of divination in their hand. The spoils of fortune telling, of sorcery, so to speak, is what I call it. Cursing another people. And they had the reward. Don't know how much, but we'll see. We'll see in just a minute. And they came unto Balaam and spake unto him the words of Balak. So they've traveled a long way. And that's a long way with this reward money. And here's what Balaam says. And he said to him, lodge here this night. Thank goodness. We've walked a long way. We want to stay. Lodge here this night, and I will bring you word again, and the Lord shall speak unto me. And the princes of Moab abode with Balaam. Now what is the problem right there? Before we ever go any further, what's the problem?
He didn't just send him away. He's letting him stay, and he's thinking about it.
He didn't just send him away. He didn't say, no, you need to leave. I'm not blessing those people or cursing those people. It's not happening. This also shows us what? That God, even at this point, we have the nation of Israel established people-wise. They've not taken their land yet. But God is still speaking to whom? He is speaking to Gentiles outside of this group of 2 million people. He is speaking to people. Okay? And we know that because God, in verse 9, God came unto Balaam and said, what men are these with you? Who in the world are these people? God, of course, knew who they were. Who are these men? Why are they here? It's just like Billy Ellen said. Balaam should have said, no way. No way. Get out, leave. But the thought, what? Ooh, money. And Balaam said unto God, Balak the son of Zippor, king of Moab, hath sent unto me, saying, behold, there is a people come out of Egypt, which covereth the face of the earth. Curse me them. Peradventure I shall be able to overcome them and drive them out. And God said unto Balaam, you shall not go with them. You shall not curse the people, for they are blessed. Now, I believe Balaam right here could have turned the corner and turned his destiny in an entirely different direction right here. Even if he had made the mistake before to entertain the thought. Have you ever entertained a thought that you probably shouldn't have entertained? Even if you didn't go through with whatever else it was, have you ever entertained a thought and maybe come to your senses and thought better of it? I believe we all have. Balaam had that opportunity here. God said, no, listen, you're not going to. You're not going with them. You're not going to curse these people. They are blessed. Enough, end of story. You're not going to do that. Let's see, are we in verse 13? And Balaam rose up in the morning and said to the princes of Balak, get you into your land, for the Lord refuseth to give me leave to go with you. Yay! Balaam looks like a good guy here, doesn't he? He obeyed the Lord. You read it and he obeyed the Lord. I'll be honest, as I was reading this, I had heard through teaching, preaching, what Balaam has done later. And as I was reading this, I kept waiting for that to come up. And I was reading it, and I was like, wow, he seems like a pretty good guy. He's obeying the Lord. He got a little issue with entertaining some sinful thoughts, but he's obeying the Lord. Okay? So, get you into your land, for the Lord refuseth to give me leave to go with you. It's in the language. It's in his words. The Lord refuses that I go with you. It's God's fault, guys. It's not my fault. I would do it. But God said no. It's kind of like an obeying child. Mama said no, so I can't. But I would if I could. You entertain that thought. So they got to come back. All the way back. Probably took a little while. I did not research how long it takes to walk 400 and however miles over that line. But if you've watched The Fugitive, you know the average foot speed of a person on uneven ground is 4 miles per hour. That spiel, the famous fugitive speech. Who knows that? Oh, y'all know that. And so it takes them a while. 400 miles walking. It's about like driving to Myrtle Beach. It seems like it's 400 miles from Conway to Myrtle Beach. If you've ever driven it. But anyway, long time. And the princes of Moab rose up, and they went unto Balak, and said, Balaam refuseth to come with us. So Balak says again, or in verse 15, and Balak sent yet again princes, more, and more honorable than the ones he sent before. Meaning what? More money. They are richer. They've got more money. We're going to go with a more enticing offer. Okay, verse 16, and they came to Balaam. So they came all the way back down here. And he got another crew and sent him all the way up. So imagine how much time is passing here. Balaam's got the thought, the seed is sown in his mind, and it is allowed to fester and grow. And he's probably hoping, maybe they'll send somebody else with some more money. Maybe the Lord will change his mind and let me do it. And they came to Balaam and said unto him, verse 16, thus saith Balak the son of Zippor, let nothing, I pray thee, hinder thee from coming unto me. Oh, we will. You remember the line from Jurassic Park? No expenses spared. He was not going to let this man pass through his grasp. He's going to throw all he can at him. And he's going to keep coming with it. For I will promote thee unto very great honor, and I will do whatsoever that you sayest me to do. Come therefore, I pray thee, curse me this people. And Balaam answered and said unto the servants of Balak, if Balak would give me his house full of gold and silver, I cannot go beyond the word of the Lord my God to do less or more. Okay, Balaam's a good guy again. Look what he said. I mean, that's pretty. Even if he offered me all his house of gold and silver, I cannot do what the Lord says not to do. I cannot do it. I can entertain the thought, but I cannot do it. When you read it at face value, it seems okay. He doesn't seem like a model for all future false teachers. But he is. And Balaam answered, in verse 19, now therefore I pray you, tarry you here also this night. Stay here this night, that I may know what the Lord will say unto me more. And God came unto Balaam at night and said unto him, if the men come to call thee, rise up and go with them. What time is it? Okay. Rise up and go with them. But yet the word which I say unto you, that is all that you shall do. That shall you do. It's what Balaam wanted. God told me so. God told me to do it. And Balaam rose up in the morning. Boy, he didn't sleep in that day. He got up, giddy, and ready to go. Let's go 400 miles. We're ready. Let's go. Let's get paid. I'll do it. But only what God says to do. But I'm going to go. I'm going to, entertain the idea. He got up in the morning, saddled his donkey, and went with the princes of Moab. This is where you begin to see God allows things, but doesn't will things. Okay? When the children of Israel left Egypt, who caused Pharaoh to leave Egypt and go after him? Who hardened whose heart then? At that point, God hardened Pharaoh's heart. Pharaoh had rejected what God had said long enough. So God sent him on a path toward what? Judgment. Destruction. Balaam rejected what God said. God said, you're not going, you're not going, you're not going. Stop entertaining the idea. Don't come to me and ask me again. This is enough. This is it. So when you read this, if you're just reading through it, it looks like God changed his mind. Because in verse 20, he says, go with them. But look in verse 22. He gets up and goes, and then God's anger was kindled because he went. That doesn't seem just quite fair, does it? Doesn't seem like you're getting the fair end of the deal there if God tells you to go and then he gets mad because you go. Sometimes God will give you what you want to put you on a path of correction, or, like Balaam here, the path of judgment. We'll get through these next couple verses here. Now this would be a scene in a movie that I would want to see. I would like to direct this part of a movie. You're going to do this in a play one day. You can direct it. God's anger was kindled because he went, and the angel of the Lord stood in the way for an adversary against him. Probably an appearance of Christ. An Old Testament manifestation of Christ. The angel of the Lord. Where was I going? Oh, now he was riding upon the donkey, and his 2 servants were with him. And the donkey saw the angel of the Lord, standing in the way, and his sword drawn in his hand, and the donkey turned aside out of the way and went into the field. And Balaam smote the donkey to turn her into the way. It's a smart donkey. He says, I'm not having any business with this right here. No way. But the angel of the Lord stood in the path of the vineyards, a wall being on the side and a wall on that side. So he's kind of pinned in there. And when the donkey saw the angel of the Lord, she thrust herself into the wall, crushing Balaam's foot against the wall, and he smote her again. What's he doing? He's beating her. He's beating her. And the angel of the Lord went further and stood in a narrow place where there was no way to turn either to the right or to the left. And when the donkey saw the angel of the Lord, she fell down under Balaam. And Balaam's anger was kindled, and he smote the donkey with a staff. He's laying a whooping on this donkey. And the Lord opened the mouth of the donkey. Can you imagine? And what's even more amazing is the way Balaam responds here. And she said unto Balaam, What have I done unto you that you have smitten me these 3 times? What have I done unto you? I have not hurt you. Well, and Balaam just talks right back. I guess when you talk to God, talking to a donkey, it does not seem so far-fetched. I don't know, but he replies. It doesn't say that he was amazed. He replies, he says, Because you've mocked me. I would there a sword in mine hand, for I would kill you right now. I wish I had a sword, I'd kill you. You'd be done with this. And the donkey said unto Balaam, so they're having this conversation, Am I not thine donkey upon which you have ridden ever since I was yours unto this day? Did I ever do these things to you? And he said, No. Then the Lord opened the eyes of Balaam, and he saw the angel of the Lord standing in the way, his sword drawn in his hand, and he bowed down his head and fell flat on his face. Angels do not seek worship or to bow down in front of him. This is Christ. This is an appearance of Christ himself. He welcomes or does not turn away the worship. And the angel of the Lord said unto him, Wherefore? Why have you smitten your donkey these 3 times? Behold, I went out to stand with you, because thy way is perverse before me. His way is perverse, meaning going off the right direction. He has God's ear. He talks to the living God, and he has turned aside from it. His way is perverse. He was getting ready to kill him. He was angry. He was mad. And the donkey saw me and turned from me these 3 times. And unless she had turned from me, surely now I had slain thee. By now I would have killed you and saved her alive. And And Balaam said unto the angel of the Lord, I have sinned, for I knewest not that you stood in the way against me. Now therefore, if it displeases thee, I will get thee back again. We're gonna stop right there. He looks like I have sinned, Lord. I have sinned. I know I have sinned, but if that displeases you, I will turn away and go back again. You can see him disguising his deceitful intentions with the right lingo, the right words. People learn the Christian lingo, the way that you talk, the way that you walk. They know it, they see it. But if you watch, you pick up on these other habits, these other words, these other things they say, their actions. So what we've got here is a man who appears to those who are not trained and who are not observant or spiritual. The donkey was more spiritually sensitive than Balaam. The donkey had more sense to heed to an angel than Balaam does. He's disguising his deceitful ways with clever enough words that anybody on the outside would be like, oh, he's a good man. He's a good man. But if, Lord, it displeases you, then I will turn back. And you see in the next chapter, God says, go. Go. You ever said that tone? Just go. Just go. Whoever you say that to knows you disapprove, knows it is displeasing, and sometimes you just, God gives you what you want. And we'll see more about Balaam coming up. And I'll have you know, just a little preview if you want to read through it, Balaam ends up blessing Israel. How's that for deceit? For who this man is. Anybody got anything?
God knows how to work everything out. He
Oh, yeah.
always does.
Well, the donkey. As far as I know, there are two animals that spoke in the Bible. The serpent and the donkey. Am I missing one? Anybody got? Well.
You shouldn't call anybody a donkey then, should you?
Mm-mm.
Balaam said he might have. Go ahead.
I was going to say, you could have made a lot more money with a talking donkey than the guy.
Right?
So he should have really stopped and thought. He's like, okay, I'll turn around and go, but can I keep the talking donkey?
Right? Can you?
And he could have made a lot of money.
That's right. He can fly. He can fly. He can talk.
Balaam said if I had a sword, I'd kill you, and the donkey said they weren't out there in front of you, you just can't see it.
So we're going to get into more about this man, I guess next week, right? Or are you taking over next week? We'll go into it. It'll probably take 3 or 4 to get through all that this man does. You'll see his fate, and then how he ends up being the forerunner of false prophets throughout what he does. And it's bad. It's bad. It is really bad what he does. Anybody got anything?
God has the last move.
He does. I love the song. I was going to say this before I got up here. In that song, that's the last verse is my favorite line too. When death gives way to victory. Death's had a little taste of that. Just a little taste. You know, one here, and of course, Jesus is the only one that has come back with glorified, but maybe the exception of Moses being glorified, but others were released from death's grasp for a time. Death lost one. Can you imagine when he loses millions? Oh. He got a little bloody nose, on Easter Sunday morning, but when death gives way to victory, physical death has its hold for a while, but it has to let go. Oh, that's good. That's good. Anybody got anything?
Pray especially for Ty this week. He's leaving in the morning for Puerto Rico on mission trip with World Changers. And please speak his name in prayer this week.
Yes.
Ty, I love it.
I was glad to look over and see 2 of my Sunday school students sitting here and listen to this lesson tonight, because I'm thinking maybe it might help answer a little bit about a question that was brought up in class this morning. I noticed Aaron looked at me and grinned and went, And I went, and so remember that question this morning? Yes, you do. I thought he did.
What was the question? You can't leave us in suspense.
Will our animals in heaven be able to talk to us? Will we be able to understand our animals?
We were having a discussion about heaven and our thoughts on it and what the Bible says about it. And so they're asking me some questions that it's like, and so I'm saying, well, we'll just go with what the Bible says on it. So tonight you're talking about the donkeys talking and the snakes talking, and I'm going,
I'll finally be able to hear what back talk my dog's giving me every morning, I guess.
Jordan, what I want, it's on my mind while he's asking me about anything. You know, it's a beautiful thing what the Holy Spirit does for us. Because we have the Holy Spirit in our hearts, we can read this word that we just read tonight about a donkey talking, you know, and about God having that power to let that donkey talk. And I think about people that don't have the Holy Spirit, that are not born again, they don't understand. If you told them the donkey talk, they'd laugh you plumb out of this room.
They would, and in all, if it happened to us, I believe there would be a shock value. But you look at it, and I have no problem believing it happened.
Right. I have no doubt in my mind or in my heart or within myself that every word, this is not true. You know, this is God's word. And just that, again, you know, knowing that He knows what we're going to do. I don't care what we say. He knows our heart. And, you know, if you just stop and think about that, why try something like Balaam was doing? You know, because God knew it all along. You know, but it's just so awesome that the Holy Spirit gives us that ability to understand these words, and that's just beautiful.
The thing that I think is amazing is the same Holy Spirit that they had back then that could heal people. The same Holy Spirit is alive in us today through Christians. You know, just to know that the same Holy Spirit that Jesus had, we have in us.
Yep.
It's just so amazing. It's hard to believe.
It's hard to contain.
It's hard to feel worthy of that. To me, it's hard to imagine that we've been, or I've been blessed enough to have said yes, to have said okay.
You know, it's that same Holy Spirit. It brings us peace. Like it brings peace to us when we're sick. It brings peace to us when we're worried. You know, when there's things in our lives that we don't understand. Only the peace of God. I mean, we can experience that where other people don't.
There's a song out right now, I don't know if you've heard it. It's called Same God. And it talks about the same day, two churches, one's a wedding, one's a funeral. And it's the same God. In celebration and in grieving, it's the same God. It's all, and it's great. You don't have to go to somebody different.
That happened to me. We had a wedding, somebody down at the lake down there, who was that?
Andrea and Chris,
No, I mean, it was
Lacey,
Lexi, whoever that was in the Styles family.
Lacey.
And then come right back up here for Josh's funeral. Was it Josh, the young man?
Josh Bullington?
Josh Bullington's funeral was that same. You have to shift gears, but the same God is with you at a wedding and a funeral. That's right. One's happy time, one's happier time.
Yep.
Everybody meet Claude and Faith back here right behind. Oh, Michael and them have behaved themselves tonight. You're sitting right behind the preacher there, Claude, so just need to know that. Okay. They have the cancer ministry for cancer survivors. They've been here with us before.
Anybody got anything else? Well, we'll continue right on next week. And that's a good thing that's what I love about being at any church that teaches the Word on, Sunday nights, Wednesday nights, and Sunday mornings. You're getting a whole lot of different things and a wide variety of things. And, some people miss that. They don't, But anyway, let's pray. Heavenly Father, Lord, thank you for this day you've given us and all that you've blessed us with, Lord, all that had to go right for us to be here today with our health, with our homes, our finances, and our cars, whatever it had to do, Lord, for it to be just right for us to be here. thank you for working all that out for us, Lord. Thank you for another opportunity to teach and preach. Lord, I pray now that you be with Ty Youngblood as he leaves. Lord, line everything up tonight, all the way up till he leaves. Make sure everyone's rested, that's responsible for travel, and everyone that's responsible for safety does their job to get him there, to let him do his job, what he wants to do, his service to you, and get him back home. Lord, we pray that you go before everything that happens and be with him. Give him the strength to do what needs to be done. We thank you for him. We thank you for someone who's so successful in just about everything he does, academics, athletics, but he still humbles himself before you. We thank you for that, Lord. I pray that you be with us as we leave this place, Lord. Help us to prepare and learn and fall more in love with your word every day. I ask that you be with us as we leave this place, and most of all, forgive us where we fail you each and every day. Lord, help us to realize where we are sinning and have sinned, and help us to fix it. Help us to fix it so we don't do it anymore. We don't want to throw a stumbling block in front of anybody. Help us to be who we need to be. We thank you, love you, and praise you in Jesus' name. Amen.